Hello and welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Magazine podcast. I'm Chris Eggett, the editor of the magazine, and today I'm joined by Matthew Vernall, a contributor and regular columnist in the magazine.
I am indeed. Hello there.
Hi.
How are we all doing?
I think we're all good.
That's perfect. Given it's just the two of us.
It's just two of us. And in my house, because we can do this now.
We have that power.
We have that. We're allowed. We're actually allowed.
Are you first jab or second jab?
I am actually first jab, but second jab coming shortly.
Mine's due. My second jab's due in August. So
that's it.
Lovely present to me.
That's it. Yeah, so we're allowed to record in person, and this is maybe the first time I've recorded a podcast in person in my house. We usually, all those ones I recorded in person with Charlie are done in a nice studio that is soundproofed and doesn't have a bit of glass in it and stuff like that.
But can you have beer there?
You can't. No, I'm having a lovely little beer.
There we go. I think it outweighs the negatives.
I can't admit to having a beer anyway there. And it would have been picked up perfectly. The sound would have been picked up perfectly had I done that. So would you mind introducing yourself to the readers or listeners who maybe don't read the magazine yet, maybe not subscribed?
And really should be, because Tabletop Magazine is the top magazine for board gaming news and reviews. So my name's Matthew. I've been writing for most of my adult life, but this has been the first time where I've had what you'd call a steady gig in terms of the writing industry. Been gaming since I was about 3 or 4 years old. Gone through so many different games in my time, every fad, every possibility thing, which is impressive given my budget has always been provably lacking. But it's the wonders that you'll do when you make friends, and especially when those friends have older siblings who had Magic the Gathering collections, which are now just gathering dust, and Dungeons and Dragons being just, oh, have you got a book? There we go. There's hours of entertainment at the low price of your time. Yeah. But yeah, since then I've been writing now for just over a year for the magazine, which has been great. Yeah,
so you do like a review every month at least?
And a couple of reviews if I'm lucky. Although sometimes that's a bit of a burden, given some of the games have a bit of a heavier clock in than others. But
yeah, so Matthew suffers from the fact that he lives quite nearby, which means that often there's a game that I quite fancy the look of, that I get in for a review, that I then realise I have absolutely not got time for, because I have lots of very boring admin things to do for the magazine as well.
Whereas I'm a boring admin in my daytime job, so at night I can live as a board game vigilante and spend long hours devolving into 50-plus page rule books to try and understand dungeon runs and other bits and pieces, but enough to keep you busy.
What's the racing game I gave you? Apocalypse Road, was it?
Yeah, that's the game where there's an entire 2 or 3 pages on just how to appropriately enter lanes. Yeah. When it's appropriate to enter lanes, when it's appropriate to follow through on traffic. Genuinely quite good game, but the rulebook was... I've had rock salt dry, like less dry than that.
So, but today we're going to talk about chess.
Chess, yes.
Sort of, anyway.
In a way. I've got a little bit of everything prepared about chess.
Yeah. So this is because, and the reason I suggested this to you is because Charlie noticed in the magazine that you bring up chess quite a lot. And she would quite like a game of chess against you at some point.
I will probably lose. This has been my burden, because for the earliest time I was getting train games, and I was very worried that I would become the train guy. Given there is a wonderful history of like the 18xx games, and just the sheer quantity of really impressive but also very tricky and very minutiae driven games, that I was very worried. And in doing so, I've now inadvertently become the chess guy.
Yes.
Getting to more sort of dueling based, strategy based, abstract based, which I also enjoy.
Yeah. We recently had a review of Thrive.
Yes, we did.
Which was one of your must plays that you've handed out. So you've got a top 5 for us.
Yes.
And also, maybe you're just going to tell us what's good about chess. Why is chess something?
Why chess?
Why does chess loom in your reviews so much? Other than
now we're going real deep into lack of expectations there, but for me it's a case of board gaming isn't a new hobby. Like, for me, it's not new. It's literally been around all my life, and I've been growing around board games. And from a young age, I was playing games against my younger brother, against my parents. Chess was the game that my dad taught me, so he'd have someone to play chess against until I went to a chess club, and now he doesn't want to play it anymore, and I understand that. We'll get into that later of the pitfalls of chess. But as board games have been around for like thousands and thousands of years, and chess is one of those ones which has also been there for that amount of time as well. Like, we're talking about a game which literally started over about 1,200 years ago now. Early India, where you have games like Ashtapada and Chaturanga, which then developed as they moved along through to Persia, and the game sort of changes and changes and changes, and it eventually makes its way to medieval Europe. And you have chess as this weird melange of what was once a 4-player multiplayer strategy game is now this sort of 2-player dueling game, which was very sort of plodding and esoteric and very planning, and then it's slowly changed, and then funnily enough up to about 15th century then sort of became a unified game. We have all these different melting pots, all these different contributions across history. Like, you have the Vikings playing a different game, and then that game becoming like Nefertafel, and
which is very good, and everyone should try that, because that's something that I have a very early memory of going to some like Saxon like educational sites,
like a Viking experience
thing as
they give you
an
axe
trip.
And they tell you, right kids,
well, there was
get off the boat.
There was something where we were making like is it wadding, where you basically
wattle and daub, so you
mud huts basically, on a kind of weaved
so only the most thrilling aspects of Viking lifestyle for you.
Well, I just thought it was cool. I mean, I think I remember it because I remember getting told off for doing it because I was doing it before lunch.
You're like, no, I've got to finish this. It's like,
no, more like you're covered in mud before lunch. Maybe you could have done that afterwards, which is it's just a sign of my childhood that I just wandered off and did what I thought was interesting. But
had they actually instructed you on wattle and daub, or did you just sit yourself down and start?
It was like we were building a wall of some kind. It was quite big, and I just wandered over, and there was just like, as they are at these things, a helpful person who said, "Do you want to go?" And I'm like,
"Yeah, let's go."
I do. I definitely want to smush that clay sort of mud stuff, because I remember it being quite clay. Anyway, but in the gift shop there was this game, and I remember again, basically, because every other child has to go. Buy a rubber,
like a Viking helmet or an axe.
Or something with just the thing printed on it, because that's what you did. But I sat down and I learnt this game from the little set of rules next to it. I obviously couldn't afford it. I think it would have been like 50 quid because it was like a carved thing.
Sounds about right.
But it was a super interesting, like, it like blew my mind that it's like chess.
Yeah.
But something else.
But its own variety. There's a whole load of those games that and they all spin off from this one game that sort of it makes its way across, and it sort of when it hits Europe, it hits with a lot of the Roman Ludus games, and you have a lot of Egyptian sort of movement games as well. And then chess kind of takes hold on that ideal of just a game where like actions have consequences as well as just having to move things as well. It shook people's minds.
Yeah. These variants are deadly interesting. Yeah. Can I tell you why I like chess?
Go ahead.
It's the game.
It's the game.
It's the game.
How do you mean?
For English people, at least, who don't have access to Go in the same way.
Sure.
You'd say he's talking about a board game, a game on a board of any kind whatsoever, and you're not thinking about Monopoly because you're thinking about like a proper one for some reason. You would say chess. It's the game. It's kind of maybe like people did quite well with this for quite a long time.
Well, that's the thing. It literally hundreds of years. Like, we're talking again where the last major rules expansion for it, if you can think of it that way, it's like the 1500s in Spain, where you have chess is now, the queen can move a lot, the bishops can move a lot. Now we have new chess, which is literally what it was called. Then Italy got down and called it. Yeah, exactly. That 100% hot new patch chess.
Yeah.
We've buffed queens, we've buffed bishops, pawn's got a slight buff, we've made the game faster, quicker, and then it hasn't changed since, other than like really, really small rules minutiae. But it's a game that captures imagination, because chess has always been seen as a game that requires thought. Like, there are so many people, like Benjamin Franklin spoke on chess, and he said like game of chess is not merely idle amusement. It is the game that increases the valuable quantities of the mind, and that all the course of human life can be learned through chess, which is pretty pretentious, but at the same time, when the alternative is...
I was going to say a bit much.
Yeah, it's a little bit much, but then the alternative is sort of your trading card... Well, not trading card games, but your playing card games of like poker and other sort of games which are like, they're played by merchants, they're the ones that go around the world, whereas chess became a game where you had to have a set. So it was quite established, it was quite formal, and if you were someone who had the time to play chess, which a lot of middle class to upper class Europeans did, and then brought with them to various colonies around the world, you could really get good at it, and you could really sort of learn about it, because that's the thing that I think appeals to people most about board games and other sort of games. Like, you play Monopoly, there is so much of it which is driven by random chance and limitations on the board that there's only so much strategy you can learn. Whereas like games like Go or like Shogi or other games like chess, where they reward time and dedication to it. Like, I remember playing chess and learning chess as like a younger child, and then finding out when I went to secondary school, oh, there's a chess club. It's like, oh great, I'd love to play chess more. And then being taught how little I know about this game that I thought I knew everything about, and then every time you think you know enough, you then learn about this whole new world of chess, and it's just continues to grow and continues to be interesting, despite some of the issues that do exist with chess, in that it is very much a game that is very punishing.
That's good, isn't it?
It can be good.
It's a duel. Someone's going to lose.
Someone has to lose. That's true. But chess
are
is
we about to get the review of chess?
Well, maybe.
Got it.
I mean, I would definitely give it a maybe if I was reviewing it today. Like, just lovely sort of board design, lovely athlete. But the I mentioned this in the review about Thrive, in that chess is a game that really rewards the time you put into it, but it rewards your time. If you then play this game with someone who hasn't played chess before, or is limited with chess, you will probably beat them. Yeah. And chess then becomes this game where it's less about a game, and it's more this constant quest to find people of your level. Because I now judge my entire friend circle now is either people who won't play chess with me, or people who will, but I will lose to them every time.
Yeah, perfect.
And that's the only way that you change and develop as a chess player.
I see what you mean. So yes, because obviously when you give me those two scenarios, and I want to play the people who are going to beat me every time, because that's a real challenge. For them, they're probably thinking the same thing, and they prefer to play someone who could beat them. Exactly.
And it just becomes this constant need for one-upmanship and stuff. And it's a very sort of, weirdly for a two-player game, it's quite a social game as well. In that you can't just keep playing the same person over and over again, because you will just learn them as much as you learn the game itself, and it will stagnate quicker. So it's a game where community and replayability and things like that are really important to it. And you see that now, that a lot of ways that chess has changed now, there's so many online resources for chess. So you've got chess.com, you've got Live Chess, which is a free phone app and computer one where you can play with friends online, you can play with computers, you can play against random opponents around the world. So it's a game where more and more options are being made available for people to get into it and get involved with it. And again, as well, you've got people like Hikaru Nakamura, who is the first person in the world to ever be signed to a professional esports team for chess. And he's now a professional, so he's a Grandmaster level chessman who was gunning for Magnus Carlsen's chess champion title. It was supposed to be scheduled last year, got delayed due to COVID, and now this year in November, him and Carlsen and Nakamura are going to be fighting out to try and get this. And these are both guys in their 30s. Magnus Carlsen became the chess champion of the world when he was 23. It's an insane game where you can, if you really want to get into it, really want to divulge so much time and effort into it, it's a game that rewards that. But if you just like board games, or if you like variety for it, chess is a game which will not reward you for dipping in and out of it. It will punish you every time you come back if someone else hasn't been playing it, or someone has been playing a lot more than you have. It will have the same sort of effect.
I think of it as a holiday game, basically.
What sort of holidays are you going on?
Just
we're talking sort of rainy caravan.
Well, not necessarily, but maybe you could do it in that situation. It seems like a game where if you're with a group of people you're not necessarily with all the time, or you try not to be if you're younger and you're going on holiday with your family.
Sure.
because you're a teenager and you're trying to stay away from people. But you get lots of repeat plays of the same game.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of game because it's got sort of access level, and also like that sense of like, parents will play it with their children because
they can beat them fairly.
Well, and also that is important. But even if they don't like chess, they play with their children because there's a sense of it being educational in some way, in that same way that you talked about earlier.
It is a game that does, like I say, it more than other games as well, especially because given how sort of pure is probably the wrong word, refined is probably the better word, in that it's been going through so much iteration over the years that it's got to the point now where every move has consequence, and it's about teaching like forward planning and movement and positioning and those sorts of things, where it's like you can't just rush in and hope that this move will work out for the best. You have to think 2 or 3 steps ahead, and the best players are the ones who think like 5 to 10 steps ahead and can see that sort of forward planning. Yeah,
it's the idea of the first 14,000 openings of chess are solved if you're playing at a very high level, and it's really the point where you get a sharp intake of breath from the crowd is going to be when they see the thing that's literally never happened before in chess, because just the variations of what can happen are so vast.
Yeah, there's a thing as well, like even professional players, they'll start gravitating towards certain styles.
Yes.
And then they'll have to try and...
Sorry, that's the meta.
Yeah, literally that. They'll get a reputation of being like someone who's like aggressively open certain ways, or do things like... Magnus Carlsen's had to change his style because he was getting a reputation of being so overly aggressive and stuff that people would start playing defensive styles against him. So now he's had to try and learn more varied things so that when you start with him now, you don't necessarily know which way he's going to be turning. So yeah.
It sounds great. I think, if anything, we're selling chess really hard.
Well, it's a game that, in terms of accessibility, the only thing that limits you is getting someone else who's willing to learn the rules with you, and then a chess set. And chess sets are free now because online. You can get like Lichess, like I said, lichess.com free, and you can set it up and you can send requests to friends and they can play through computers or phones.
Also, your gran probably has one in the cupboard somewhere.
If you look underneath enough cupboards in your own home, a chess set will be growing, and you can just cultivate that.
There'll be like a travel one that's like magnetic.
Oh, sure,
somewhere.
100%.
And the other side will have backgammon on it, which we can't help you with because no one knows how to play backgammon.
No one wants to play backgammon because they fear that it may lead to like vengeful retribution from ancient spirits.
Yeah. The backgammon boards are the unknown Ouija boards.
They're the truer Ouija boards. Before they got branded and printed in the 60s.
That's it. So, Matthew, as our chess expert.
Oh God! Please don't tell me you've prepared a chess trivia challenge.
I've prepared a chess trivia challenge.
Oh,
yes. No. What's the real name of the horse?
Oh God, no! I'm in a nightmare.
Yeah. Okay.
What's the real name for the horse? I don't know if this is a trick question or not. Do I get like a phone a friend option? Like, I need to know what's at stake here. Is my job at stake? Please tell me if my job's at stake here.
Your job's not at stake. No, what I've got here is so we all know and love the Electric Bastion Chris McDowell. That's probably a bit strong. Sorry, Chris. The creator of the Inseod system and that sort of thing. He's also the creator of this list of 100
100 chess facts.
No, 100 D100 chess scenarios.
Okay.
So what I'm gonna ask you is, can you give me you give me a number between 1 and 100. You can roll a mental D100.
Okay.
And I will read you the chess scenario. That's been and then you tell me if you think that's a good variant to add to the game. You review it.
So, right. So we're doing chess variants.
Yeah.
From 1 to 100. Let's pick number 38 for starters.
Number 38. Civilians. Pawns cannot capture or be captured.
Okay.
How do you feel about that one?
Oh God. Pawns cannot capture or be captured, so they just fill up space for the entire game. It feels like a nightmare. I feel like I've played those chess games already where you don't want to take the pawn because it will lead to another capture. I don't want to play that game. No, pass.
Okay.
Do not play that.
Okay.
It kind of sounds like superhero chess. Like
you're playing. There's something like that. Yeah. There's 100 different ones here, so it's like it doesn't matter if you don't like that one. It doesn't matter because
let's go next one.
Roll another dice.
73.
Okay, so we've got Gorgon.
Gorgon.
Pieces that are threatened by the queen cannot move. Kings are not affected by this.
Okay.
I really like that one.
That's not a bad one, to be fair.
That's like line of sight type something.
And it just like it reinforces what's already important in the game, and like taking the queen is very important. It makes threatening it a lot more difficult, which is quite interesting. So I can see like knights becoming a lot more powerful in that sort of scenario because they're unlikely to be
in line of sight.
Well, in line of sight because they literally couldn't be if you want to threaten them. So that has potential.
Yeah, and it would make a game where you might want to. You would have to think about maybe moving a piece to free up a piece for a later turn because then it'd be out of line of sight of the queen, and not just in the usual way of obviously the queen being able to take that piece, but also just like because I think you'd start using the queen as like a weird like sentinel thing that doesn't actually get that involved and hangs kind of back,
but just keeps blocking things,
but keeps freezing parts of the board. So I think that's a really good one.
No, I think I would play that. That sounds interesting. We'll give that a yes. Are we doing the Tabletop Magazine rating schedule of like must play?
It sounds like we are, doesn't it?
Yeah, perfect. Let's call that a yes.
Cool. Let's have another one.
Okay, your turn to pick a number now.
Oh, okay. We'll do. So I'm looking at the list. That's quite.
Well, don't look at me. You're in person now. Think of a number.
2.
2. I was going to say, what's your favourite 2-digit number? 2.
Archbishops.
Okay.
Bishops can also move like kings. So you have an option of how they move. So isn't that good?
So, fun chess fact, because I remember this is before the Spanish patch in the 1500s, bishops could only move 2 spaces diagonally.
Oh, interesting.
And to do that, they had to jump over the first square, and then they would land on the next square. So the way like chessboards are normally set up, the idea is that both bishops and knights could have moved immediately, but then bishops became really boring, so they made them more powerful. So I like the idea of further increasing the power of a bishop. I feel like that's just going to lead to confusion, though. It's not as interesting as much as like the Queen Sentinel one changes the dynamic of the game a lot, whereas bishops is just, oh, I'm going to move my bishop here. Okay, well, I think I'm safe. Oh wait, no, I'm not, because that new bishop rule. That feels to me like one that's going to be.
But it's so hold on. Can also move like a king.
Also, so the idea of having like both your bishops on like black squares or white squares and just being like completely blocking yourself, blocking your own movement. I feel like you're just going to lead to your own downfall. Yeah, it would be very messy like that. But I think that's why I quite like it because I like the also. So it suggests to me that you either move in a normal bishop way or you move like a king. Yeah.
So it's not like they've got a better range of movement suddenly.
Well, there would just be a queen if it was.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. But it's just the idea of this bishop like hopping over to the opposite colour.
You can't hurt me. Yes, I can.
Yeah. So.
I'll give that a maybe.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's.
I don't want to play because I think I would immediately lose the game because I would think I'm safe from a bishop, and then the bishop will take me, and then I'll just be like, oh.
But the bishop to take you like that would have to. You'd still see where they are, I guess.
I think again you're overestimating my capacity at chess.
Right, let's have another one. Let's do 44, which is Arthur. Remove both kings from the board. When a player has one pawn remaining, replace it with their king.
Oh, God.
So it's a bit like a war of attrition up to that point.
That's insane.
You have to kill all the commoners to find the one true king.
Find the one true to murder through the exact opposite of citizen. Just destroy the peasant folk. So does that mean as well, like, you could promote a pawn to a queen and suddenly the other one becomes king?
I guess that's how it would work, yeah.
Because you're just removing.
And that's actually, can I just say, as a theme, a narrative element to the game, suddenly, once the queen's on the board, the queen returns, the king appears. I think that's actually quite thematic and good.
That could be interesting. I would give that one a play. Now that one sounds like a yes. That one sounds like a definitely must try. It reminds me, there's another one called the Stealth Bomber Chess, which is one I do want to play.
Yeah.
Where you nominate one piece which will explode. Mm-hmm. So whenever it takes or is taken, it then destroys everything in a 1 square radius.
Right, good.
And you note at the beginning what your stealth bomber piece is. So it's like, I'm going to move this pawn closer to you. Is it the one? You don't know.
You, that there might be something almost exactly like that in here because it's
Let's try number 86.
86. Etiquette.
Etiquette.
Queens cannot be taken, but must end their move on a square of their own colour.
That makes them bishops.
Well,
That just makes them bishops.
I suppose it does, yeah. Recording etiquette makes it funny.
Just invincible queen bishops. No, that one's a pass, I'm afraid. Sorry. It's a fascinating list, though.
Yeah, 91 here. Last one. 91. Diplomatic immunity. Pieces in the same file as their king cannot be captured. I assume a file is like a row or a length. So
file is what you call like your columns. That's not your letters.
Yeah.
And rank, because it goes from military terminology.
Okay. Yeah.
So ranks are like the horizontal lines, then files and that. So
I quite like that one.
So that means the first pawn is just this unbeatable bodyguard.
Basically.
It just makes God. So there just becomes a line of invincibility.
Yeah.
Because.
Think of the check possibilities from that though.
What check possibilities? Well, I suppose if it's
because you could make one of your pieces in a very dangerous position, immune from being taken, and also put their king in check or checkmate possibly, because it gives an extra layer there of protection from your.
You just can't take them, yeah.
Because those pieces in that file.
Definitely feel like we'll lead to quicker games. There was
it leads to quicker games because you get to halfway through and you think this is stupid. We need to stop.
I'm trying to remember now. There was a chess move opening, which my friend is going to not forgive me for forgetting. I'm just going to search a very weird thing onto Google. The bong cloud attack. There we go. Also known as the bong cloud opening, where you go e4, e5, and then you move the king forward.
Yes. Okay.
And then it can be followed up with a double bong cloud attack, where you both move your kings forward, and it becomes a game of moving the king around the board. Where in that scenario, I feel like that is actually a legitimate strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
Because suddenly now my queen's invincible. Suddenly my bishops can't be destroyed.
I think that's great.
I feel like that could be interesting.
Yeah. So that's
I definitely now want to play chess with a D100 next to me and just be like, and now the game is this, and make my friends hate me.
I think it's worth a go, and I think if this podcast does anything and it gets people like into playing chess like games and variants, I think we've done something good.
I feel like it should. There is enough sort of variety in the pieces so that you can make lots of games with chess as well. A lot of people have done as well. There's so many various chess methods online. I definitely recommend looking into them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like this would make me lose friends at the same time. They probably weren't worth keeping because if you're not willing to sit down with me and play a game of etiquette chess, then are you really my friend?
That's it. Yeah,
that's a call out to everyone out there listening. Demand you to
this podcast is a subtweet. So shall we do? Should we kick off your top five? I say top five. Your five.
Yeah, my five. I think is probably the fair way to say it. So this is my 5 chess alternatives.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that chess is a bad game. I don't think chess is. I feel like chess is a game where you can have a lot of fun to it if you're willing to commit the time in, or if you've got someone else who already has committed time into it.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to just bring a game off the shelf as someone who loves chess, but you want people to play board games with you, these 5 games here, they offer either aspects of chess which I feel more games should explore, or games should look at, or just other ways of like viewing an abstract strategy game that really make them quite enthralling and quite interesting. So I'm going to start with what I think is the oldest one on this list, which is Hive.
Oh yeah, okay.
So, which is a bit of a classic itself. That's John Yanni. I do apologise if I pronounced your surname wrong there.
This is it Exit 32?
Yes, it is an abstract strategy game. Gen 42, sorry.
Gen 42.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops.
Gen 42. It's an abstract strategy game where you're trying to capture the opponent's B. And you do this by laying tiles out, and you originally start with just one insect each. I believe the base game has 5 different insects each, which move differently. Some of them like crawl on top, some of them move at a certain number, and you've got a limited quantity of them in your reserve. And each turn you're either laying a new insect into the hive, which becomes this constantly ever-growing like amalgamation of different pieces on different sides, because if you never break the Hive into two pieces. So always constantly adding new pieces to it or changing what pieces are available. And it's a game which takes like aspects of chess and shakes it up like a cocktail shaking, and gives the game a whole new lease on life. You still have the same idea of like learning different strategies and different ways to like use your certain pieces or try to move or outmaneuver your opponent. But there's enough variety to it and sort of bizarreness to it that it doesn't immediately throw people off the same way that chess does. Like it's very much easier to learn, but in a way sort of harder to master until you sort of really, really, really get into it, at which point you've probably got other games to play as well. But for me, in terms of like a game that revitalized the abstract strategy genre, Hive is one of those ones I would highly recommend looking into, especially if you're someone who wants to scratch that chess itch but struggles to get it out. It's probably the most chess-like games of the ones I've got on this list, apart from the last one.
So I think that it is the last one in chess. We'll come to that. So I think what chess gives me, and one of the things I like about it a lot, and something I like about abstract games generally, especially abstract two-player games, and things like Undaunted, games like that, is the sense of not necessarily a duel, because a duel sounds like it's going to end very quickly with one person slipping up.
Sure.
Which maybe chess is a bit like that, but I think often you're playing these games and it actually feels like grappling with someone, like pushing. You're applying pressure in one area and they're applying pressure in another area, and you're trying to hold off that while applying pressure here, and then you choose where to move around. So it gives you a sort of more.
Is it reactionary in a sense?
It's reactionary. It's sort of like flowing, reactionary, and sort of sort of something where you're kind of trying to take what they're giving you and kind of give it back to them harder in a way.
It's finding a way to complement their strategy by coming up with a rebuttal that works against that. And that also comes nicely into my next game on my list.
Oh yes,
which is if you like that sort of push and pull gameplay, a game where you're forced to react to one another. It's a card game called Star Realms.
Oh, Star Realms, yes.
Which again, another game that's been out for a little while now, designed by Rob Docherty and Darwin Castle, and published by White Wizard.
Yes.
It is a card game that lives in my go-to travel bag because it's that and Love Letter, which have become my go-to travel games just because they're so simple to set up, so simple to get going, and the play space that Star Realms offers is a game where you're each battling one another as like armadas of ships, so it's a very light deck builder game. But the interesting element that there are 4 factions, and each faction has its own sort of means of playing, and they're designed so that some of them complement each other, others are better to counteract each other. So it's like the Blob Empire is all about high damage and high aggression, whilst the Space Federation is a game that allows you to it gives you advantage, either health advantage or card advantage, and finding that right mix and responding to an opponent, knowing what's in their deck, because obviously all cards are drafted face up, so you know what they've picked, you know what sort of synergies they're going for, and you can then respond in kind by trying to go against that or trying to build your other way around that. So it's very much a game where you can play it so many times and you'll see the same sort of ships and similar strategies, but there's enough variety in it that you can really shake things up, even without having to add the expansion stuff into it, which is another game where there are 50 billion expansions to it, but I've not had a bad one yet. I've not bought many of them, but it's a game which I constantly see more enjoyment with, as well as their hero variant as well, which name eludes me at this very moment.
I mean, it's I've got it upstairs. I was about to say this is the one. This is the one I've played the most of, because I've not actually played Star Realms. I've only played Fantasy Realms or Hero Realms or something like that. It's one of those, and that's very similar. You build your deck as by buying from the market. And it's sort of a really satisfying, because the thing is that feels like Magic the Gathering in lots of ways. Just because you're playing things out, you tap a card to attack or do a thing.
I believe Hero Realms is the one that you're thinking of. It's
Hero
the one
Realms.
that also has, you can get like 7 decks and things as well. Yes.
Yeah.
So Hero Realms is the fantasy one that they did with custom starting decks. There we go.
That's it. So it's just lovely. I absolutely agree with that. And yes, it does have that good back and forth in it, in the same way that things like Magic do. And,
there's a lot of joy. I was going to include I feel like all the games on this list, I wanted it to be like chess in that it's complete. Like you're never being asked to buy a booster pack for new chess pieces because now your bishop's obsolete and you need to get the new bishop that changes up the
hot
game.
new bishop's dropped.
Yeah, exactly. This bishop, it does actually jump like 3 times sideways as well and performs kick flips and really like throws it onto your opponent.
That's it. Yeah. Great. Excellent choice.
Thank you. Here's another excellent choice, which not dissimilar in the way. So if you like the idea of like push and pull gameplay, but don't like the randomness of deck building, the Unmatched series, of which I have played a lot of the in-gen one, and I'm eagerly looking forward to the next Jurassic Park themed one they will be releasing. It's basically pop culture bar fights, in that you take a picture of different characters from fantasy, from properties, from all sorts of things, and battle one another with a custom deck and miniatures. And again, this sort of veers away from chess's not purity, but the fact that chess is very open in that all the information is always available, whereas when you then start bringing in card games, it obviously becomes obfuscated through hand management and through like you don't know what cards are in their hand per se. But the need to really think about your movements and your planning and forward thinking is simplified here, and in doing so makes it more accessible, makes it more thrilling. Especially when you can have cards that counteract the cards, and knowing when to play cards is just as important as where you're playing them or at what point you're playing them. And the sheer variety that comes to this as well, like you can pretty much buy whichever one you like the look of the most and have a fun time with it, but find if a friend has a copy as well, just bring yours along, and now suddenly your game is entirely different, entirely changed, and it helps keep the game like rejuvenated and revolutionized without becoming like stagnant.
It's kind of like the villainous effect in that way.
Yeah, very much so. Actually,
like, sort of mix and match element
where you can shake things up without needing to like literally reinvent the entire game. Like, you understand the same core rules, but without it completely throwing things askew. So, Patchwork is my next one. Speaking of forward planning and forward thinking, Patchwork is a lovely 2-player game where you're each trying to build quilt. Seems very different from sort of the violence of warfare and chess, things like that. But in terms of strategic planning and forward thinking, it really excels on that. So if you like the fact that chess rewards you from planning ahead and being able to respond to things, Patchwork is a lovely little puzzle game where you're trying to build up this lovely quilt, and you can't afford to have any empty spaces by the end, so you're constantly having to look for the best piece out of a variety of options, knowing that whatever you then pick will affect what your pieces your opponent has, so you have to be careful to not push too far ahead and give them too much options, whilst at the same time trying to look for yourself and your own forward thinking. I just find it really delightful. It's also such a different theme as well. One of the biggest things about chess as an image, well, put it this way, there is Chess Fest in London this year. Tickets are £20. It's free if you are under 25 years old or if you're a woman. There is no restriction. God knows how they're managing and testing that. But according to their website, if you are a woman, you can go there for free. If you're under 25, you can go there for free. Chess has a bit of an image problem.
Yeah. Because so this is like Queens Go Free. Yeah,
basically. But it's a bizarre thing as well because...
this isn't because the Queen can go
the Queen's Gambit. I would love if that was the case. Because again, Queen's Gambit. Now we're moving into Netflix recommendations. Very gripping drama. It's less about chess, though. The parts that are about chess are really interesting. Much more about like intellectualism and especially being a woman in the fields of like I am a woman who is a genius, and then what do I do with my life? It's a really gripping drama, really interesting. And I hope that it has led to more women picking up the hobby. I know that on Twitch, I think it's like you see the player spread of that, and it's a much more diverse spread of players. Online activity has made it a lot easier, more accessible, as well as the whole thing where most chess clubs and things that you'll look at will be mainly male centric. Yeah. Not that they're catering to men, just those are the ones that are attracted to it, and it can become things like how tabletop miniatures games and things like that can become a male-centric place, and they don't need to be, especially when you're talking about a game where for hundreds of years it was played by men and women of court because it's a game where you didn't have to be physical.
Mm.
You just had to be smart. You just had to have time and patience. And a lot of women of court had a lot of time to read over the hundreds of years of bourgeois living.
Yeah.
And most of the artwork and things you look at across history will show women playing chess, or women and men playing chess. Yet, for some reason, it's become less and less of a thing now, which is a shame.
Mm.
But for people who aren't interested in it, because chess is a themed game, a war strategy game, alternatives like Patchwork, where you're literally just trying to make a quilt, it seems completely on the other end of the spectrum, but rewards the same sort of creative thinking and forward planning. And I really love more games to try that and to change the image of chess whilst keeping the heart of it and the core of it.
And it's still going to be pretty brutal when it needs to be.
100%. I mean, Patchwork is a game where you can just completely screw yourself, and then you're looking at your work and thinking, it's a wreck. I'm ashamed. I've made half a quilt here. I'm going to die of exposure when the winter comes.
This is one of my favourite little sort of cloisters of gaming, which is the very relaxed, chill-looking game that is actually like a knife fight. Anything where you think it's going to be, seven bridges, a roll and write. Okay, where you are, it's dice drafting, so the other people can't have your dice.
No, they're mine. I earned them.
Absolutely, and you think, oh well, that's actually a really quite gentle, very common Euro-y, non-fighty mechanic that's like the most friction you're going to get. Except right here, it really matters because the rules of the board of Seven Bridges is about drawing your flaneur around.
I beg your pardon?
Flaneur?
I try not to keep that out in public. So
flaneur is the Baudelaire thing of basically going for a walk without purpose and letting the city and exploring the city. It's like psychogeography and that sort of thing. It's sort of like the precursor to that, of the idea that you can just go explore a city or any urban place and kind of have a free walk through it that is kind of an interesting adventure. That's it. It's basically.
I've certainly had a few of those in my time, being an English student and exploring a new town.
Well, that's it. That's literally. Yeah, you literally do that as a student because unless you've got some urgent need for,
food or sleep.
Food or sleep. Where you're going for those things. You're probably just like, I wonder what's over here, and you sort of go do that. Anyway, it's about mapping out your flaneur through. I completely forget the name of the city, but there's 7 bridges there. They're beautiful, apparently. But the bloody game is.
Would it be Paris?
No, it's somewhere Scandinavian,
okay.
Or possibly German. I'm not sure. I really shouldn't have started guessing.
I'm trying to think. Amsterdam would be the other one where there was lots of bridges.
It's not. It's like Kreuzberg or something like that. I'm actually going to look it up now so that
full time. Talk about my. It just so happens I have a list of my top 5 bridges. London Bridge may surprise you. It does not make it to the number 1 spot.
The last one will surprise you. Doctors hate it.
Doctors hate this bridge. The number 1 bridge for anyone who is interested is, of course, the San Francisco.
Koenigsberg. 7 Bridges is a roll and write dice drafting game in which players explore the historic city of Koenigsberg, which isn't a place. I don't know where.
It's not a place.
It is a place.
Oh, it is a place. Apologies.
To the people of Koenigsberg. Anyway.
Thank you for listening.
Yes. We're quite big in Croatia at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's right. On the podcast charts.
That's our next tabletop convention confirmed. You hear it here first.
Yeah.
Just send us your application.
Buy
us a venue. We will fly over to Croatia.
I'm not sure we will. I don't know what the COVID situation is over there.
That's fair. Next year, 2022 tabletop Croatia. We would love to come. Please find a convention to invite us to.
There's anyway, but that game is just an absolute. I've never been so angry at someone for taking what I needed, because there's certain sets of rules about how far you can move, where you have to stop. Then also things like when you pass a monument, when you go sightseeing,
right.
That gives you a tick to put in a special power box that gives you extra.
I've unlocked the power of self-reflection.
Well, it's I've unlocked the power of using these paths that go through parks.
Oh, I see. I've unlocked secret passage parks. I like this.
Yeah, it's quite good.
Definitely have to
Because one of the scoring mechanisms is how many trees you've seen.
Oh, of course.
But watching,
You really are selling this to me. Genuinely selling this to me.
It's so good. I really enjoyed it. But it was such a fight for a game that really should just be a chill. Like, it's Ordnance Survey colours. It's not even like a vicious looking game.
I mean, if we're talking about most deceitful looking board games, Root will forever win the game of being the most cutesy, cuddly animal looking game. You try and sit down and play that, it's just military machinations and violence and bloodshed and betrayal and poor little hamsters getting massacred by the thousands.
Yes. Yeah, well, they probably deserved it. Yeah.
That's definitely speaking as someone who's either lost to the Woodland Alliance or just spiteful against them.
So we finished your list, didn't we?
No, we haven't. We've gone to the most important one, because speaking of aesthetics and speaking of games that reinvent chess, we're going to talk to my only must-have game of 2021, which is the game we mentioned very early on at the beginning, and that is Thrive. For those who have not seen this game, you should definitely look it up.
You should literally look at it because it has lovely components.
It has gorgeous components. So the game is designed by Martin Grider and is published by Adams Apple Games. And fewer games take the idea of just, okay, we have this core gameplay. How do we make it look the most beautiful we can? And they've really captured that. So it's a very similar to chess. You have 6 sort of lotus tile like pads, lotus blocks, which are your playing pieces,
which are just a very nice plastic.
I mean, it's just a lovely like molded plastic there. You've got molded plastic pieces. You've got lovely wooden pegs, and you have this beautiful cloth mat that represents the lotus pond that you're floating your pieces around in. And the way the game works is each turn you can move a piece, and then you can add 2 pegs to any of your pieces. And the pegs represent where you can then float your lotus bottom to. So they all start off being able to move 1 space forward, but you can immediately then change that and go, okay, well, this one can also move diagonal 3, or it can move like to the side, or it can do all sorts of things. So it's chess where you're literally like building the pieces as you rumble down this hill into crashing into your opponent, with the object being the first person who can get their opponent down to 2 pieces wins. But for me, it's a game which I found immensely charming because it's chess with an even playing field. It's chess where you start out and your moves are intentionally limited at the beginning. It's literally you can move 1 piece and then place 2 pegs. And so you think, okay, it's simple, I can move this piece, and then suddenly you just drop into the abyss of potential where you can put these pegs anywhere. You can be like, oh, I can make this 1 piece really powerful, or I could slowly encrance my entire line so that everything is a little bit more aggressive, or I can do and there's so much potential there where if you see your advantage, you can be playing pegs and be like, right, now by placing these 2 pegs, this piece now threatens 2 places. And much like chess, you're always forced to make a move in your turn, so you can't just delay actions. And if you've only been overcommitted to 1 piece that then gets captured, that potential is lost. So you've really got to consider I could make this piece as powerful as queen, but then if I lose it, I have an army of pawns that can do nothing but be beaten by this slowly approaching force. It's genuinely brain-teasing. It's still it's a game I always want to get out and play, not because it just looks great, but just because it's a game that constantly I find interesting, even just to have other people play it. I'll get it out and watch them play, and they'll do things that I've never considered doing or never thought with that moment. Why would you want to do that? It's no, it's a great strategy. Phenomenally looking game, phenomenally great game, and also very affordable. So my recommendation for if you're just looking for, you want to get someone interested in playing chess, start with Thrive. If they won't play chess. If they will play chess, great, fantastic, and there's so much stuff out there. But if you need to ease them into it, or maybe you're trying to persuade someone subconsciously that chess is the game that they should play more of, Thrive is a game that for me is really, really taking a shine to. I just really appreciate how it distills chess even finer to an even more vitalized way of looking at it.
There's something to say for a game that continues to live in your head when after you've played it a few times and you sort of come back to it over and over again. There's the one I always think of when I bring this up is Paris, La Cité de Lumiere.
Cité de Lumiere, yes. Another charming 2-player game.
Yeah, really, really good. Devere, I think, put that out. Lovely, and it's a game that I was kind of lukewarm on it at the time.
That's fair.
But I think a lot about it still.
I love games that reward that sort of that input, that desire to want to do more. Again, it's part of what engaged me so much in chess in the first place. Is that it's a game that if you want to give your brain over to it and surrender over to it, it will reward you for doing that. Much in the same way that Go is another game where you can spend all of your life trying to become a master at it, and it will continue to surprise you and continue to reward you. So there's something to be said about gaming on a budget and just having a few choice games. And chess, like I say, is cheap at the starting price of free, provided you have internet or have someone who owns a chess set, which I'm pretty sure you could go to any charity shop in the world and you'll pick one up for 50p. No worries. Yeah,
that's fine. Cool. So that's your list. I think Thrive sits at the top of that list.
100% for me. Yeah,
quite easily, I would say. If you've still got time, I think we could maybe spend a few minutes talking about what you've been playing recently. What's been tingling your taste buds of gaming?
While I do love dueling games, I do love chess and those sorts of games as well. They are limiting in when you want to have more people over, and now that things are opening up again, I have an urgent desire to see people in person to make sure they've not just been a hallucination in my head since lockdown. And one of those games that I've been having since lockdown was Pandemic Legacy.
Nice.
And finally been able to open it, having literally years ago now tearing through Season 1, Season 2, being enthralled by it. I even really enjoyed Season 2. Some people were a bit on it, but for me it's still provided an enchanting game. But Legacy Season 0, Matt Leacock and Rob Davio have kind of blown it out of the water by actually reinventing the base game of Pandemic and adding so much variety and so much charm to it. You're all working for the CIA. It's Cold War era espionage, and it feels manic and stressful every game, even if you're doing well. But they've done slight little tweaks where they've just changed how the pacing works. They've changed how it interacts. There's this debrief book. So every month you play now, it feels like a choose your own adventure because your actions having immediate consequences on the board, more than just like a few stickers and a few like countdown stuff. No, you're actually making direct impact and making the game either harder, constantly making the game harder for yourself, but in ways that gets released by new options or new player abilities and new possibilities. So I'm really, really charmed with that. I'm currently up to May, playing that with my partner and my friend who we've played through all the other ones together, and still haven't actually gotten rid of those boxes yet. I kind of want to, once this is done, I kind of want to make like an art triptych of the games, so that they're constantly there as a reminder, because it's a lie saying you can replay them again afterwards. You really can't, but you don't need to either. You inject half a whole story. If you've not played a Legacy game, I can't recommend these highly enough. Though pretty much any of them out there will reward you in some way, especially if you find one that you really love the theme of. It's just completely enchanting. Yeah, fabulous.
I'm really looking forward to finally getting my hands on it, because I've still not got hold of a copy. But that's okay. That's okay, because
there's time.
There is time.
That's the thing now. Like, even it's been 3 or 4 years, if not longer, that Pandemic Legacy Season 1's still been out. I would still highly recommend that.
Yeah,
easily, because it's so charming. 2 is probably the only one I wouldn't recommend out of the blue, because it is designed as a sequel in mind. But you could play that if some of you have got familiarity with Pandemic and then you wanted to jump into that. You could and have a great time with it still. But I do love that Season 0 does make it, just draws it back a little bit more to its original roots in a way that makes it a little bit more accessible, and makes the narrative as well a lot more easier to engage with, because it only makes passing reference to future plot points. So that's been my main board game drive at the moment. And then outside of that, I've been role-playing with a system called Lancer.
Yeah, very good. Tell us about Lancer.
Lancer is made by Massive Press and designed by Miguel Lopez and Tom Parkinson Morgan. I apologise. And it's I'm never terrible with names. It's amazing I got Lancer right. I'll be honest with you. It's what's called a Mud and Lasers RPG.
Mud and lasers.
Mud and
okay,
lasers.
I'm sold. Right.
We're in the grim darkness of the future, except it's not that grim. It's actually really vibrant and really colourful.
Cool.
I think it's one of the best looking RPG books I've ever had. Just in terms of succinct layout and design, everything, it looks gorgeous. And it's a game which takes, if you think of Dungeons and Dragons as like the typical example of of role-playing games where you have like narrative adventures, then you go exploring in a dungeon, and it's a little bit of both. Lancer kind of is the higher extremes on the role-playing side and of the like the wargaming side.
It's one of these.
So you have your RPG sessions. You are a Lancer who is like a renowned pilot who has these custom mechs, and it is fully customizable. But each person has their own mech, which they equip various weapons to. They can get licenses, so they can get new upgrades and things. There's a system in the game where money is important for role-playing purposes, but you're never limited to it when you're building your mech. You always have full options and full accessibility to anything. The idea is this is a post-scarcity future where you can 3D print a mech overnight and get it built and ready, so you can customly create and are encouraged to custom create.
Sorry, apologies.
You can custom create your own mech based on 29 different patterns, goodness knows how much different weaponry and options, and make really different stylized choices. And it comes into this sort of tactical miniatures game where the games master fields their own army, and then against the players who each have their own just sort of insane mech that they'll build combos and engines with, and synergy systems. And it's
I immediately need to ask, have you got minis?
I don't have minis. We've been playing it through Roll20.
Okay, cool.
So we've been using there's custom artwork and things online for those. It's just easier for me as well because it's a hex-based miniatures game. So getting maps up and getting things up has been a lot easier online than it has been in person. But it's
that's the next step, right?
We're reaching the late stages of this one. We don't know if we're going to go back to D&D or pursue this further. Mainly because outside of the really tactical miniatures gaming side, where you're really having to play out your actions and think of it more of a war game than as a like just an RPG game. When it comes to role playing, you're given much more freedom and liberty to do things. It's always whenever you make a test in the game, it's you roll d20 and a 10 or higher passes.
Great. I'm a fan of that.
And you have modifiers like small modifiers based on stats or based on character's background. And things like advantage or difficulty, accuracy and difficulty. But the game always lets you the option of, if you fail a roll, you can push it. And it might cost you something. So it may cost you time, or you might be injured, or you might be that, but you'll still accomplish it if you can make another roll. And it really brings this idea to life of that you're not just like all talk. It's like an RPG where you try and climb up a ladder and then you roll a dice, it's a 1, and suddenly this expert climber just falls off a ladder and hurts himself. In Lancer, you're always capable of what you want to do. It's just what are you willing to sacrifice, or what is your character willing to go through in order to achieve it or undergo it. And that's just a fascinating play space to be in, and just being able to really go to your players, what do you do? And they can do anything they want in that regard there, and the game shifts through that, and the game it's a game where constant back and forth between player and games master, much more so than the limitations that sort of D&D leaves in it. It has its very archaic structure in behind, whereas Lancer feels new, it feels fresh.
So what, and this is maybe a stupid question because you've said the word mech a few times.
Yeah, mechanized.
Like a rebel suit. Yeah, but my question is not what they are, but how big, what scale are we talking about here?
They vary in scale. So there's ones with like human-sized suits, to others which are like 20 to 30 foot monstrosities that you have.
There we go.
And with big shields or big laser cannons.
Is this like extremely animation?
It's a little bit anime, but it really. So they've the game itself is like they have 4 factions, and each of these 4 factions has like different ways. So there's like the Smith Shimano Corpo are what you think of when you think of like your anime style, flying through the air with the greatest of these sort of big mechs and like your Gundam sort of style ones. But then you also have stuff like Black Star, which is just or the IPSM, where there's just big mechs and they're just big bruising buggers who will smash the crap out of someone, and it's just. Every single genre where a giant robot has ever fought a thing or giant robots that fought each other, they've incorporated into this world in some way. And the fact you can pick and choose as well, so you can be like, I really like the idea of a big mech, but also could it have like rocket boots? Yes, it can. Could it also have this? Just
of course it can.
And having that wide freedom is insane.
Yeah.
It's so generous, it's so giving, and it really opens itself up to players building these insanely like compiled together, cobbled together mechs, and then giving the games master the freedom to go like, yeah, you go hard on them and you provide them with like a big strategy or something, because they will find a way to overcome it.
Yeah. That sounds great. I
That's
may,
really good.
in fact, actually try it. Yeah.
I'm happy to play. I'll bring it over sometime, because again, one book RPG, so it's everything's there, everything's ready.
Yeah.
It really plays digitally as well, because they've been creating companion apps for it.
Mm-hmm.
So for your character sheets, you can have it on a phone,
Mm-hmm.
which also means you can modify and adjust your mech on the fly between character sessions without having to write out a whole new character sheet every time.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
And that's how they would do it in Lancer. Is that they'd bring up a floating sort of display panel.
Just holodeck display and then put it in your 3D printer and you're
Absolutely.
on your way.
Yeah. Or maybe use the power of their mind.
Potentially.
through some sort of, I don't know, magneto
network,
or cerebro thing. Cool. So is there anything else that you'd like to spread a bit of paradise with?
Botanik.
Oh, yeah.
Is the other game of the moment. This is the one I've been enjoying the most out of this like Motley crew. I won't mention the other games for the time being. But Botanik is a 2-player pipe dream.
Mm-hmm.
So it's by Space Cowboys and published by Space Cowboys, and you're competing mecha biologists. So each turn you're grabbing like pipe dream style pieces to try and cobble together these machines, and you want coloured tiles next to each other, and any tiles with flowers on, you want them to have connected to the same coloured matching thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need to have coloured tiles along the same pipeline. You could just have them adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they're close to one another, then they still score for points and things. And you can't just take the tiles immediately. You have to put them onto like an assembly line where they become available, and they only come off the line if they no longer match with any of the ones in the middle. Mm-hmm. So you're constantly trying to set yourself up whilst also blocking your opponent or forcing them to place pieces they were trying to save for later. Yep. You can just sort of just be like, no, you place that now, and just completely throw off their plans by blocking them or making them having to like quickly scrabble together to try and create this weird pipe monstrosity. And
is it good? Because
it's really cute. It's really enjoyable. We have Gregoire Arguet, Frank Cluton, and Sébastien Ponchon.
Oh yeah, those guys, they work together all the time.
Yeah, and it really shows here. It's a game which looks beautiful, looks abstract and absurdist, which is what you want from an abstract absurdist puzzle game. It's a game which will have you swearing at one another, but also swearing at yourself, because you're never sort of forced to place a piece you didn't pick in the first place. So you're always being like, well, I kind of made this cross for myself in terms of like I chose to do these options, and now I've got to live with the choices. So it's a really charming game there. There's enough randomness so that you're never going to see exactly the same game, but you can sort of develop a strategic style to it. Not necessarily. Maybe I must. We'll look. I want to give it a few more plays through. I want to see it more people before I give it a final verdict. But right now, I've been really happy playing this. It just is an enjoyable little light strategy game. It's a bit cathartic, a bit enjoyable, and again, at the end as well, you're left with just this lovely like pipe monstrosity. It's very sort of Galaxy Trucker in that. Look at what I've created, and then you can either be like, it's wonderful, or it's a wreck, and realise it was all on you who did it in the first place. So.
That sounds great. Yeah, you've sold it to me. Yeah. I wasn't super hot on this. I didn't know. It's not one that jumped out to me when I signed it.
It does look. It looks weird as well, which will make it bizarre to some people, just because of the way you don't necessarily know how it looks. But then when you actually start playing it, it makes a lot more sense in motion, which I appreciate a lot. Yeah. How about yourself? What have you been playing recently?
Oh my word! What have I been playing? So I've the game. Okay, so the game I've been playing the most. And the game that I've been playing instead of games that I need to review is right next to you there. It's a game called Oh My Goods.
Oh My Goods. Okay, this is the one you said like, we must play this.
Well, I've just said like there's a couple of things I need to have a look at. So I've got the very, very good because I've played it online before. Vampire the Masquerade Rivals, which maybe we can have a game of that later, which I've got reviewed in this issue. But I did say, hey, we could just play Oh My Goods because that's all. That's all
he wants to play.
And I'm increasingly coming to the point where I'm thinking it might be perfect.
So sell it to us, because I'm looking at this game at the minute. It looks sort of medieval aesthetic, but
so it
I want to know more.
Okay, so you are going to create a tableau, and you are going to take goods from the market and put them into your tableau, and then add value to them by creating chains of production.
Okay.
So pretty standard stuff, right?
Yeah, it does sound like it's rattling off a few games in my mind.
You know what you are.
Where's the spice? So
the spice is the central and completely brain-melting central mechanic, which is that there's 112 cards or something in that box, and when they're face up in your tableau or in your hand, they represent merely the thing that they are, which is a good or a good and a building,
right?
And the production chain for the initial production chain, and then also a secondary production chain, which is and that makes it sound complicated. It's not. It's exactly the kind of thing you see in many euros. But when they're face down, because this is the way you know if a good is in a building or not, face down across the building, that's worth the amount of coins of that good,
right?
Except, so when you then later run your you've run your leather shop or whatever,
right?
Or your tailors, But you already had an abattoir, and you also have a leather workers. You can then take your leather which is worth 2 gold where it is, whatever, and then because you've run your tailors, you can use that production chain. You can move all of those face down cards,
just slide them onto the next
one, and now they're all worth 4. So the way you're adding value is like literally the magic of like value adding in any real
commodification
thing. So
it sounds very much like it's reminding me of the Villagers mixed with Race for the Galaxy.
Yeah, basically.
Where cards are your resource, and
but the joyous thing is obviously that you are. So then, if I want to spend 3 gold, I can take one of those now worth 3 gold tailor cards from there and spend that.
So you don't actually have money aside; it's the whole game is in cards. So it's all goods. Oh god!
And then also you've got to think the other joyous thing that's happening is that because your goods are face down cards, which are also buildings and resource types, you're changing the deck in a kind of like a backwards deck builder way, where the deck is shared between everyone.
And you're just denying your friends. If you like someone's like building a thriving fishing industry, you're just burying fish under this board so that it's like
kind of You don't necessarily know that when you're doing it as well. So that's why there's probably some randomness or something in there that people don't like. But it's what I like about it is the fact that it's so complete in its use of those product cards and those chains. Also plays very well solo. Also you get it done in 30 minutes or something like that at most, with like your first game and stuff like that.
See, I was kind of, when I was like, okay, is it going to be vampires or the good building game? I was like, I kind of think it's vampires, but now I think it might be goods.
Well, I don't know. I think we can battle this. We can have a game with Oh My Goods to decide which one to play.
I love the idea of just, we don't know what game to play. Let's play a game to decide the game.
That's
perfect.
Yeah.
For those listening in as well, there is a large stack of board games that Chris also showed me earlier. His board game collection.
Yes,
of this wonderful collection of like lots of little games and lots of insanely massive games, and there's no real middle ground. It's just go big or go small.
Yes, go big or go small at the moment for me. It's because a lot of those little boxes pack in so much for me, like Oh My Goods, which is the size of 2 normal playing card decks, basically.
I'm really strict about what games I bring into my collection, because I know if I just had less restraint, my entire house would be board games. But micro games I really have a problem with because I can just keep stacking more and more and more of them. I know I never play them all, but I've got them all, and they take up as much room as one big.
We're about to deviate wildly here and run over horrendously, but
that's what you can edit this in post.
I have basically I have a legacy problem, and but not in the way you think. Not in the way you think. So
it is the way you think.
Well, it's my. So my daughter is 16 months old, and I'm got games on the shelf. And I'm like, she'll like this when she's 18.
That's the long game. I thought you were talking about
that's my legacy problem.
You're less thinking what legacy game I'm going to play. What am I going to pass down onto?
Well, this is why I'm so looking forward to when my copy of Oath arrives, because if I can keep the same copy of Oath running for 40 years, assuming I live that long,
100%.
Then that'll just be absolutely joyous.
It's literally a game you can pass on to your children, and they will play it, and then they will pass on to their children.
Theoretically, that's the idea. That's my idea anyway. So there's that sort of game. Then there's games I need to play with my brother, which are basically the chess games.
Fair.
We're talking about, which some of them live with him now because it's just more sensible.
The best way to deal with a board game collection is to
give some of it
away, and then they will build a board game collection, and you can play through them. Yeah. It's the perfect crime.
And then there's like crazy heavy stuff. There's Beyond the Sun, something like that, which I really really like, which is for just like when my really smart friends are here.
Just want to really show off.
Things like Gloomhaven, Dungeon Degenerates, Tainted Grail, stuff like
King's Dilemma was another one I saw.
King's Dilemma, yeah. Things that I need to give more justice to. They're like my copy. Some of them.
It's your treat. It's once you've played through what you need for the month. You can now sort of get a few friends over, get a bottle of wine out, and just.
Yeah, we're going to have a Dungeon Degenerates night.
Yeah,
we're going to start the campaign.
Just be degenerates in dungeons.
Yes, it. Yeah, we haven't actually done that. I've actually only played that with 2 people. That person being my partner, and then also solo. And it's really good. It's so good. Yes, I may have given it a must play had I been the one reviewing it. But
I've got at home Millennium Blades.
Millennium Blades,
which is my. It's almost my like perfect Vice board game in terms of it ticks off so many of my boxes. So it's a trading card game, board game.
Okay.
The idea being that you're playing an entire trading card game in one sitting. So you, from the pre-release, learning how your deck works and learning how the game works, to then a real-time buying and trading cards. You get victory points for building up a collection binder of cards and also a competitive tournament deck. And it comes with so many different expansions. So every time you play, you can mix match different things. So like, maybe this time we'll have the Mario Brothers one mixed in with the Final Fantasy and the James Bond style expansions, and the game just becomes this insane puzzle of trying to cobble together the deck that works with it. And because everything's against the clock as well, you have this frantic rush to try and build something in time for the tournament. And is
it a satire, basically?
It's a little bit of everything. Yeah, it's it's a satire and a love letter to.
And often they are, aren't they?
You like a lot of more like trading card game animes, sort of things like Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff. It's very sort of Yu-Gi-Oh inspired with the way that characters work and the way things happen. But there is an expansion which adds co-op mode where you play against a deck-driven opponent, like a non-human controlled opponent, which I may need in my life. Yeah. Because it's just a puzzle that never ends.
And what is the name of this game?
This is Millennium Blades. The last expansion is coming out this year, and I'm very looking forward to it. And I don't have room in my house for it as well, which is my other biggest shame.
Yeah. Well, with that absolute avalanche of games we didn't mean to talk about but suddenly are. I think that's us done for this podcast. Like and subscribe. Find us on Twitter. Find us on YouTube. Charlie is doing many videos. They are all pretty funny.
They're really charming. It's been really nice to see and stuff like. I saw the Art of D6, like how to tell you a tabletop one, which was I was like, I wrote this one, and now Charlie's making it look really professional, and I feel proud. It's like
It's Charlie's doing great work on this. Tabletop Mag on YouTube, and buy the magazine.
Please.
It's good. And it's, you know...
Buy it for your friends. Give it to them as gifts.
It's a wonderful gift.
It's
a
a
subscription
fantastic
to Tabletop Gaming magazine.
It's the gift that literally keeps on giving because it gives you free gifts each month as well.
Most of the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're actually being watched over by a seagull.
I see. I thought you were referring to something other than the wonderful little King of Tokyo miniature. I thought you were like a shadowy corporation is watching what gifts we can and cannot include in our magazines.
Yes, they are. Yeah, they are. Absolutely. No, not at all. We have some really lovely stuff lined up actually. So now's a really good time to get hold of it. And all of you people who emailed me to see if they could get a copy of the Micro Macro
expansion,
a little mini expansion, extra cases after it was announced for the Speile Jahres. You should have been subscribed, shouldn't you?
Should have been subscribed. You've been ready for it.
Yeah.
We're on the cutting edge of board gaming news and supplies here.
It turned out we were. I didn't back that one as hard as I thought, as I should have maybe to be.
What are you talking about? You always knew it was going to be good.
I sort of gave it a sort of warm review, but not hot. And I think I don't think it should win.
Wow! Just call it out on the podcast, why don't you?
Yeah, I am.
Just shots fired.
Yeah. I mean, Unmatched should win Speile.
Yeah.
Isn't
Robin Hood up for one of them as well, though?
Yeah, Robin Hood's up for family, so I think that should win.
I think that should win the family
because it's
one.
Just it's Michael Menzel. We love Michael Menzel, and it just looks really, really smart.
This is now moving on to a Speile Jahres recommendation.
Yeah, I know. We're running off now. We don't have to worry about the Kinder because Dragonimo already won. So, so
fair enough.
King Domino won again.
4-1 conclusion.
So there we are. But yes, Arnak should definitely win, and so should Robin Hood, in my humble opinion. And with that, we'll say goodbye. I've been Chris.
I've been Matthew. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Take care.